still be on the topic of places and building, but we will discuss more about grammar points used in this topic. These grammar points are comparative and superlative adverbs. There and here, and subordinate clause following say and tell. And by the end of this lesson, I hope you will be able to answer the following questions. Number 1, can we compare an action with the other actions? Number 2, what is the difference between here and there? Number 3, what structure can we use to report what people say? To answer these questions, let's begin exploring the first grammar point, comparative and superlative adverbs. First, let's review the use of comparative and superlative adjectives with an exercise. I'll show you pictures of 3 different travel accommodations: a homestay, a hotel, and a resort. Let's make some comparatives and superlatives among the Marigold Homestay, Sunshine Hotel, and Sonata Resort. Alright, let's check the answer. Did you get all the correct answers? If not, let's take a look at the comparative and superlative rules to use them precisely next time. Pause the video if you need to and take notes. So, that's how to form comparative and superlative adjectives. Sometimes we not only compare things or people, but we also compare their actions and characters. For example, the city has grown the most quickly after it became a tourist attraction. Or, he knows the place better than I do. To do this, we use comparative and superlative adverbs. It's because adverbs are used to explain or give more information about verbs and adjectives. To make comparative and superlative structures, while adjectives stand after be or before nouns, adverbs stand after verbs or after objects following verbs. Now, let's find find out how to use comparative and superlative adverbs. Let's take a look at the 3 examples. The first example is the most common type of comparative adverbs. Most adverbs end in ly. In this case, we only need to put more in front of the adverbs. As in our example, more was put in front of the adverb quickly. The similar rule is applied for a superlative of this adverb type. Instead of putting more in front of adverbs to make comparative adverbs, for superlatives, you put the most in the front. Using this rule, the superlative version of sentence number 1 would be, the city has grown the most quickly after it became a tourist attraction. Not all adverbs end in ly. The adverb fast in our second sentence is an example. These adverbs usually have only one syllable and take the same form with their adjectives. For these adverbs, we only need to add the suffix er after the adverb. That's why in this sentence, the adverb fast becomes faster. Some other similar adverbs are hard, late, high, long, low, and wide. To form their comparatives, we only need to add er in the end. To form superlatives for this type of adverbs, you need to put the before the adverbs and add the suffix est in the end. That's how we got the superlative version of the second sentence. We arrived at the hotel the fastest because we took a different route. Lastly, some irregular adverbs don't follow either of the 2 rules that I've just mentioned. I've made a table of them for you. In this table, you can also find a summary of the other 2 rules that we have discussed about. Feel free to pause the video to take notes. Alright, here is the exercise for this grammar point. Pause the video for 2 minutes to do the task. Welcome back! Here's the answer. First, I'll show you the answers where we need to use comparative adverbs. They are comparatives because they only compare two actions or imply that there is one action being compared with another. We need adverbs in these gaps because they go after either a verb or an object. Question number 2, 7 and 8 are comparatives for regular adverbs that end in ly. That's why we only need to put more in front of the adverbs. For question number 8, we need to put then after rapidly to connect two things in comparison in the sentence. They are economics in tourist areas and one in other areas. So the answer to question number 2 is A, number 7 is B, and number 8 is C. Question number 1 and 6 are comparatives for irregular adverbs. So we need to use the table that I gave you earlier. The comparative adverb of far is further. And the answer to question number 1 is B. The comparative adverb of much is more. And the answer to question number 6 is A. Question number 5 is also a comparative. The adverb high has only one syllable and it takes the same form with its adjective. So, its comparative adverb is also higher, like its comparative adjective. The answer is B. Now, let's go over questions that use superlative. First, gap number 3 is a superlative adverb due to the word most used in the sentence and its position after the verb build. A and B are not correct because they don't follow the rule for superlative for regular adverbs. The answer is C. Lastly, it's question number 4. The word busy in this sentence is not an adverb but an adjective because it goes after the and in front of the noun season. Therefore, A in the form of a comparative adverb is not correct. B is not correct either because busy has 2 syllables and it ends in Y. For adjectives of this type, we change Y to IEST. The answer, therefore, is C. When we travel, we not only compare one activity with another, but we also need to say where we are. A useful grammar point to do this is using adverbs of places, here and there. So, when should we use here and there? Let's listen to a conversation between a girl named Lily and her uncle to see how they use these 2 adverbs of place. Oh, hi, Uncle Jim. How have you been?
I'm good. I'm actually calling to invite you and your family to go to Sydney this summer holiday. I would be happy to have you here.
That's a great idea. We are actually planning to fly there to visit you.
Great. Hope to see you guys here soon.
In the conversation, Uncle Jim said, I would be happy to have you here. Where does here refer to? Can you guess? Yes, that's right. It's Sydney, where Uncle Jim is living. Then, Lily said, we are actually planning to fly there to visit you. This time, where does there refer to? It's also Sydney, where Lily's family is planning to travel to. So, here and there are both used to replace the places mentioned before in the conversation. It's true that here and there are quite similar in their usage, but there is a significant difference in their meaning. Let's look again at how Lily and her uncle used here and there to see the difference. So, when Uncle Jim said here, was he in Sydney? Here typically refers to where the speaker is. So that means when Uncle Jim used here in the sentence, he was in Sydney. There, on the other hand, refers to where the listener or another person is. So that means when Lily used there in her sentence, she wasn't in Sydney, but Uncle Jim, the person that she was talking to. So, these are the main similarity and difference between here and there. I have summarized them in a table for you. Pause the video if you need to and take some notes. Alright, let's do an exercise to practice using here and there. Pause the video for 2 minutes to do the task. Welcome back! How did you do with the exercise? Let's check it together. The questions that need to fill there are question number 1, 3, 5, and 6. In these sentences, the speakers are in different places to where they mention. For the remaining questions, question number 2, 4, 7, and 8, we need to fill here in. It is because the speakers are talking about the places that they are at. Alright, we have only one more grammar point to go, and it's subordinate clause following say and tell. After every trip, we might get all excited and want to tell our friends about what we learned during the trip. And this structure will help you to do it. Let's listen to a conversation between Lily and her friend Michael. She's telling Michael about her Sydney trip.
Hi Lily, how was your trip to Sydney?
It was great. My Uncle Jim is living there and he was our tour guide. He took us to the Opera House on our first day. My uncle always says that the Sydney Opera House is his favorite building. When we came there, we all agreed with him. The Opera House has a unique design that you cannot see in anywhere else. My uncle told us that he had loved the building from the first sight.
Wow, I want to go there one day too.
In the conversation, there were 2 times that Lily used the subordinate clause following say and tell. The first time she said, My uncle always says that the Sydney Opera House is his favorite building. So, where is the subordinate clause in this sentence? First, let's try to understand what a subordinate clause is. A clause is made up of at least a subject and a verb. A subordinate clause is a clause that cannot stand alone as a complete sentence, but is added to a sentence and gives it a unit of meaning. As in Lily's sentence, if she only says, the Sydney Opera House is his favorite building, speakers might not understand who is his here. But it is said with my uncle always say that. Listener would understand that his here is Lily's uncle. Subordinate clauses usually go after the reporting verb say. There may or may not be the conjunction that in between to connect these two components. In other words, we can both say, he always says that the Opera House is his favorite building, as Lily said earlier, or just, he always says the Opera House is his favorite building. A subordinate clause can also go after the reporting verb tell, as in the second time Lily used this structure. However, the verb tell is different from say in the way that it must be followed by an indirect object. Indirect objects are things or people that receive the action of the verbs before them. In this case, it is followed by the pronoun us. Some other possible indirect objects are pronouns such as me, you, them. In most cases, the structure is used in the past to report what someone said. This is shown in this second example too. When the structure is used in the past, the tense in the subordinate clause must be changed accordingly to the context. We will discuss more about this in another lesson, so stay tuned. Now, we'll summarize what we have just learned before doing an exercise. Look at the formation of this structure and pause the video to take a note. So, here's our exercise. Please pause the video for 2 minutes to do it. Have you finished? Let's check the answers. First, let's do the questions that use say. For sentences that use say there are no indirect objects after it, and there must be a subordinate clause followed. There may or may not be that in the sentence. That's how we choose answer B for question number 1 and number 4. Choose A for question number 6 and finally choose B again for question number 7. The remaining questions use tell in their sentences, so we need to have indirect objects after tell followed by a subordinate clause. Again, we may need or not need that in the sentence. So, the answer to question number 2, 3, and 8 is A. And question number 5 is C. That was everything. Let's wrap up the lesson with a challenge. In this challenge, I have a short email that is missing some words. To fill in the gaps, you need to use all the 3 grammar points that we've learned today, which are comparative and superlative adverbs, here and there, and finally, subordinate clause following say and tell. Now, pause the video for 2 minutes to do the exercise. Welcome back! Here are the answers. Number 1, it says that it was the second time that Jessica's been where? Been in Indonesia, right? However, we can only fill in each gap with one word. And in this lesson, we've learned to use an adverb of place that can be used in this context. It's either there or here. Jessica is talking about a place that she isn't at, so we need to use there. Number 2, Jessica is comparing the experience she had this time with last time. This time, she enjoyed the trip, so we need a positive adverb to describe her enjoyable experience. A suitable adverb is better. Number 3, this is to test your understanding on how